Hey YouTube, it's Petey Twofinger back at you. I did some upgrading here. I was excited about it. So I wanted to share it with you guys. Again, this is my Court 45 travel guitar, but the original pickups, Japanese had a reputation of bad steel in the 70s. And I'm going to guess that that's the steel that they made the coil wire out of, because I had a few guitars that were made in Japan from that era. I had 3 guitars, and all 3 of them, the pickups failed. And they failed because the internal windings, the wire would break inside the pickup is what was happening. There wasn't any reviews on Duncan Selects. They were brand new. And I got a pair out of a junk box for $10 because someone had bought them to install them and dropped them. It's a plastic backing plate, and that plastic snapped off. And the big problem that I had was in the way this guitar had come wiring stock. This is a pickup selector. The middle position is a kill switch, and this other switch was for a coil split. A lot of people say it goes single coil or humbucker mode, and that's a coil tap there. It's not a coil tap, that's a coil split. Coil tap is something different, but we're not here to talk about that, which means I forgot. I read about that and learned at one point, but I don't remember right now. So the more you kind of know, the more you don't know, the more that I try to get by you guys. But no, I want to be honest. So yeah, those Duncan Selects, when I did the single humbucker mode, it volume dropped a real lot. The humbucker was loud, the single coil was quiet, like unusable. So I'm happy to say these replacements are DiMarzio Invader. Is it Seymour Duncan Invader? I forget who first made the Invader. It's a ceramic magnet pickup, which some people go, ooh, ceramic. Okay, 1373. So 14 on the, we'll round up because I said they were hot. 13.7, and then when I hit the toggle, it goes down to 701. And then we're going up to the neck pickup, 730 and 1379. So yeah, they're hot. They're like 14. If you're looking for a cheap pair of pickup solution, and you don't mind ceramic magnets, these pickups are really good for overdrive and distortion, which is good because I rarely play clean. But the difference between, I'll play it. That's doing the coil tap. It's not dropping the volume significantly. So that's what I'm recommending. These are Duncan. Are they Duncan? The Duncan Selects that were in here, they kind of look like EMGs. They're like that flat black plastic cover. Those are really bad pickups. They're kind of, I don't know, they're junky pickups. They really are. And that thing that it would do when I would switch it over here, and it would volume drop way more than you wanted it to, made it unusable. So that always bothered me, and they've just got a reputation of being the worst pickups. They came stock on a lot of junky guitars, and I was like, ooh, Duncan Select or Duncan Design. I think both of those are the same thing. Correct me if I'm wrong. This had Duncan Designs. Duncan Select might be a little better, but the Duncan Designs are garbage. And they had a bad reputation. I think that's what came in the Steinberger too. And I had replaced those with Seymour Duncan Super Distortion clone that I paid $24 for the set, $25, and I really liked that. And then I got these $14 ones, and they're awesome. They're awesome. They sound fantastic. So I really recommend those, even for your number one guitar. $15 set of pickups. I said it. What I had, this is a Power Tour. Look at this. The speaker lights up. There we go. It runs off 4C batteries. So this is more lo-fi. Like, it worked. It has a guitar in, which is for the plastic guitar. It has a 12-note scale, and it plays Ace of Spades and Smoke on the Water. It plays different songs, and you can speed it up and learn them. There's actually built-in effects on it. It's out of all those plastic toy guitars that you don't plug into a PlayStation or an Xbox. This is just like a plastic guitar toy. This was the $100 one, and they had these amps that they sold with it. And I mean, I get this stuff for pennies on the dollar. This I probably paid $2.99 for this. But I mean, I had to have it. This little toy stack, and it lit up. Now, much to my chagrin, I plugged my guitar into it through a multi-effector with a cabinet simulator. That sounds really good. I love this Zoom G1. It's only $49, but it just sounds like $1,000,000. It's got everything in there. And I have the G3 too. That's the more expensive, more like a flagship model, kinda. They have the same models in them. So you're getting like really high quality sound in a small, affordable plastic package, which I like because it sits right here next to me. I've got a single clicky-clacky power switch to turn everything on. This travel guitar sits right next to me, so I can play, you know, in the middle of a movie. If it's boring, I can pick this up and just run some scales and not bother my wife too much. Anyway, I had seen this at the Salvation Army and I fell in love with it. I had to have it as my guitar amp because people are so serious about tone and having to have tube amps, and I'm not serious about that here because I live in an apartment. So I'm looking for something that's really quiet. And this is really quiet. You can turn this down using the cab sims and having that cranked up on that thing, but having the master volume turned down. You still kind of get that tone and that feeling of an amp in the room. But to me, it sounds more like a mastered album when you run it through a proper full range speaker. And that's what I did when I upgraded. Now, the main problem with running one of these was the LED lights that light up for every note of the music were causing a buzz when I ran the system off a single universal power supply. I had a 2 amp power supply, and it was running at like 7.5 volts. And I was running because this is 4C batteries. It's really only 6 volts. So I didn't want to hit it with 9. So I compromised because I split that cable off with two 2.1 mil DC plugs, like a regular pedal, Boss pedal plug, and a power plug. I took 2 of those and combined them under the one adapter. I made the one a little longer because it had to go a little longer. You know, one's going up to the multi-effector, and the other one's going right in the back of the amp. And then that's plugged into this, so I could just click, everything would come on, I could play when I'm done, click. And then I can do my drums. I got my mouse here, I got my computer set up, and I can do drums on the computer. I can write a piece of music, work out the drums, and put it all together. Take the drums off onto the memory card and put them in the big system when we make music. Now, the problem with this was, again, when you had the lights on, it was because they were both on the same power supply, and they both have clocks. A clock is an internal digital thing it's a clock. And this has a clock in it. Believe it or not, I don't know why you would need that. Nowadays, everything is digital. They had a clock in this, and it was heterodyning. Heterodyning is a weird oscillation. Sometimes you'll get lucky and it'll be higher than human hearing range, or most of the time they're not, and you can hear it. And in this case, it was oscillating when the LED would light up. So it was all fine and dandy. I went through all this work. I bought the thing. I put a DC jack in for the power. I set everything up. I got the adapter, spliced all the wire, hooked it all up, and then here we go, and I hit the da 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 da. Every time you hit a note and the LED would light up, it would go zzz, zzz. It made this like whizzer noise that was a heterodyne interference because there's 2 clocks sharing a common ground and there wasn't enough power filtering in between the 2 units. Or I would need to run them off separate voltage regulators with dedicated filtering capacitors to fix that. So instead, I opened it up and found the wire. There was 2 wires that fed the harness for the LEDs, and I just cut in a switch so I could bypass the light up LEDs. And then this is all unnecessary information. I'm so boring, but what can I say? I want to tell you guys how I do this stuff. This was how I got around the lack of bass frequencies. This was a subwoofer that was designed for you to put your coke mirror on and do your cocaine Well, you do online gambling. I guess that's why you would have this. Chop out your lines on your subwoofer. See how far that gets you. I don't know why they would make this desktop. Maybe you're supposed to put it on the ground. Maybe it's just like if you live in a Japanese apartment and you don't want to bother your neighbors. This is your bump and sub. You put your mouse cage on top of it and they can... Remember that rock and roll high school mouse? I do. So yeah, this speaker obviously didn't have any bass in it. These are like 1.5-inch toy drivers for a toy guitar. But I really didn't want, this is the power tour. I didn't want a lot of power. I don't want a tube amp. I live in an apartment with neighbors that can hear everything that I do. So this is just my little practice rig for me to write stuff on and practice. But I want it to sound good and I want to have different variety. So I've got that Zoom G1 over here. I can unplug it. It's not hardwired in here. I can just unplug the stuff and move it somewhere else. But it's really nice having this here, and I've been able to write a bunch of music. And I really liked having this giant setup, unbelievable redundant, a sub that you have to crank it all the way up to barely hear it working. And if you turn this thing up too much, it would nullify the sub. And it would sound like not enough bass. So you had to run this kind of quiet, And when I mean kind of quiet, that's by a guitarist standards. It was, to an old lady, it was loud. So yesterday I was out, I dropped my wife off at her second job. I hit the Goodwill, and they had a Bluetooth table radio with two 3.5-inch speakers. It was a nice looking unit. It was $3.99. Now the power jack is a DC 2.1 mil jack. Something that looks just like that. It's just like your Boss standard, but it was a rectangular shaped chassis jack. And that was cracked in half. So actually there was an African American, a big dude, and he was snooping around. And then he came back and he pulled something out of his cart and put it up. And I was like, what is that, a table radio? Because I love good quality table radios. I've bought like 4 or 5 of them. They're usually only a couple bucks and you can get some good ones, like expensive. And they don't know. They just put, under $5 on it, even though it'll be a $130 table radio. So we've done really well with that. I've got one that plays some mono that sounds incredible. The upper high end on it has this tin can sound, like this tight delay, almost a distortion, a peak in it, but it makes it sound so cool. I love that radio. Anyway, back to this thing. I brought it and complained to the old lady that was working there, this old ugly lady that I ran into, this nasty old lady, smelly, cat hair all over her, kind of shaky, and she's coughing up phlegm all over the place. And I told my wife, I said, the power jack is cracked on this. Can you see if I can get a discount? So she went in the back, and the boss, what was the boss's name?
I'm not going to tell you.
Okay, yeah, she'll get in trouble. Anyway, they gave me $1 off. So I got this radio for $2.99, and when it was supposed to be $3.99. And I mean, we're like, this is rent week. We don't have any money right now, so it's funny.
Fix this jack.
Yeah, well, I had the part. I knew I had it,
But
and I had it.
had to fix it.
I had removed. It was something for me to do in between having to go pick you up again. We had the part from garbage picking something else and unsoldering it and taking it out, and I had done a really good job of removing it, because you can kind of cook those. They're hard to get out of the board. They really are. It depends. I recommend putting flux on it and then adding your own solder, because the solder that they use is lead free and it's really hard to work with. It cools off right away and it makes it difficult for you to remove it, and you'll end up damaging the circuit traces or damaging the jack. So luckily enough, I had it. I used what's called solder removal tape. It's a row of this strip. It almost looks like screen mesh. It's metal fibers, and you put the flux on that, and then you lay that ribbon, this tape, on top of the area where the solder is, and you put your iron on top of the ribbon, and it heats it up, and it just sucks all into that tape. So that's a way to remove that solder instead of using one of those air pump, those things that suction things that don't really work good. You can use that pump to get the bulk of it off, but then when you're talking about the stuff that's left over, you use that ribbon. Desoldering Braid by Goot. GOOT. You can get it for like $1. It's a wonderful thing. You can get that on eBay, direct from China. So you use that tape and you cut everywhere it fills up with the solder. You cut it off, throw that away. You can't clean it. I've tried. No, I haven't. Really, I haven't. And then once the holes were clean and I could just slide it in, you don't want to force anything. Solder it back up, put the whole thing back together. And this is what I got. So it sounds way better because it's got more bass than this stupid subwoofer trick that I had, where I had to split the audio cable as well. I had right channel going to the one, which is summed mono. Even though you plug mono into it, it still played out of all 4 speakers. And same thing with the bass contraption. It's summed mono. It takes a stereo signal and plays it through the entire thing. I know that sounds weird when you're talking about a sub, but some of the new subs have dual voice coil, and they'll even have 2 sets of crossovers with a double tweeter in there. Really, it's a stereo single speaker. You heard me right. Now, this table radio is not an expensive unit, but I paid $2.99 for it. It's a BPS or RPS 8610 is a chip. I gotta look that up. It's 9 volts, 2 amps. I'm guessing it's 10 by 2, 10 watt stereo, so 20 watt total, or it might be 15 by 2 rated. I'm not sure. With that 9 volts and these little speakers in there, who knows what, doing the math, it's always like half of what you think. But the point is, I really don't want a 15 watt by 2, or 5 watt is more than I need. If it's made right and the speakers are good quality speakers, a half a watt is enough. Because I don't want my neighbors calling the landlord saying he's playing his guitar every day. I want it quiet. But also, it's just really nice having a rig that you can just click one switch and still get decent to good tone. So. Something a bit more 70s-ish. Oh, I know what it is. It's my security camera. It's the power supply for the... I've got a camera that shoots out on the parking lot. So yeah, this video was another way too long video. Nobody's watching. All right, you guys. Thanks and peace.